Jake Morrison walked home from his job at the computer repair shop like he did every day. The October air in Denver was getting cold, and he pulled his jacket tighter as he turned the corner to his apartment building. That was when he heard the small crying sound coming from behind the big green dumpster. Jake stopped and listened. The sound came again. It was weak and sad. He walked over to the dumpster and looked behind it. There in the shadows was a small orange cat. The cat was very thin and dirty. Half of its left ear was missing, and there was a long mark down its side that looked like an old scar. The cat looked up at Jake with bright green eyes. Those eyes seemed different somehow. They looked smart. Not just smart like most cats, but really smart like a person might look at you. Jake had never been much of a cat person. He had always wanted a dog, but his apartment did not allow big pets. "Hey there, little guy," Jake said softly. He reached out his hand slowly. The cat did not run away. Instead, it came closer and rubbed against his fingers. "You look hungry." Jake looked around. There was no one else in the alley. The cat was alone and probably had been for a while. It was too thin and too dirty to have a home. Jake made a choice that would change everything. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you some food." Jake picked up the cat carefully. It was lighter than he expected. The cat did not fight or try to get away. It just settled into his arms, like it belonged there. Jake carried it up to his apartment. On the third floor dot, inside his small apartment, Jake set the cat down on his kitchen floor. The cat looked around with those strange green eyes. It seemed to be studying everything. Jake opened a can of tuna and put it on a plate. The cat ate slowly and carefully like it had good manners. "I guess I should call you something," Jake said as he watched the cat eat. "How about Rusty? You are orange like rust." The cat looked up at him when he said the name. It made a small sound that almost seemed like it was agreeing. The next morning, Jake called in sick to work. He needed to take Rusty to see a vet. He found one just a few blocks away. Dr. Linda Hayes was a kind woman in her 50s who had been taking care of animals for 20 years. "Well, hello there," Dr. Hayes said as she looked at Rusty on the metal table. "Where did you find this one?" "Behind my apartment building," Jake said. He was in pretty bad shape. Dr. Hayes ran her hands over Rusty carefully. She looked at his missing ear and the scar on his side. "These are interesting marks," she said. "I have never seen anything quite like this scar. It almost looks like it was made by some kind of burn. Maybe electrical or something with very high heat." Jake looked at the scar more closely. It did look strange. The edges were too smooth and straight to be from a normal accident. "Maybe he was in a house fire," Jake said. "Maybe," Dr. Hayes said, but she did not sound sure. "Well, he is healthy enough. A little thin, but that will fix with good food. He is maybe 2 years old. Male. He has been fixed already, so someone took care of him before." She gave Rusty his shots and checked him all over. "One more thing," she said. "This cat is very calm. Most cats hate coming to the vet, but he acts like he has done this before. Very unusual." Jake took Rusty home with a bag of cat food and some toys. Over the next few weeks, Rusty settled into life in the apartment. But Jake began to notice things that seemed strange for a normal cat. Rusty could open doors. Not just push them open, but actually turn the handles. Jake thought maybe he was seeing things wrong until he watched. Rusty opened the bathroom door by jumping up and grabbing the handle with his front paws. Rusty also seemed to understand when Jake was coming home. Every day at exactly 5:15, Rusty would go sit by the front door. Jake got home at 5:20. It was like Rusty had a clock in his head. The strangest thing was how Rusty watched television. Most cats did not care about TV, but Rusty would sit and watch the news like he was really listening. Sometimes he would make small sounds at the screen, like he was talking back to it, Jake's neighbor. Amy Clark lived in the apartment next door. She was a nice woman who worked as an engineer at the power company. She had short brown hair and was always friendly when they met in the hallway. "Your cat is really smart," Amy said one day when she came over to borrow some sugar. Rusty was sitting on the kitchen counter watching her. "It feels like he is really looking at me. Like he is thinking about something." "I know what you mean," Jake said. "Sometimes I think he understands everything I say to him." "Have you seen him staring out at the sky at night?" Amy asked. "I can see your balcony from my window. He sits out there for hours just looking up." Jake had noticed that too. Every few nights, Rusty would go out on the small balcony and sit perfectly still. He would stare up at the stars for 2 or 3 hours. Jake had thought maybe Rusty was watching for birds or bugs, but there were never any around. "Cats are weird," Jake said. But he knew Rusty was more than just weird. The really strange part was that Rusty only did his sky watching on certain nights. Jake started paying attention and realized it was always on nights when there were unusual lights in the sky. Little, flashing lights that moved too fast to be airplanes. Jake looked up these lights online. Most websites said they were military aircraft or weather balloons. Some people thought they might be something else, but Jake did not believe in that kind of thing. Still, it was odd that Rusty always seemed to know when the lights would appear. One night, Jake decided to sit outside with Rusty and watch the sky. They sat together on the small balcony chairs. Rusty was perfectly still as always. Then Jake saw them. 3 small lights moving in a triangle pattern high above the city. "You see them too, don't you, boy?" Jake said quietly. Rusty made a small sound. It was not a normal cat sound. It was lower and had a strange tone to it, almost like he was trying to talk. Jake reached over and petted Rusty's head. The cat purred, but kept watching the lights. Jake had the strangest feeling that Rusty knew something about those lights. Something important that Jake could not understand. As the weeks went by, Jake got used to having Rusty around. The cat was the best pet he had ever had. Rusty was clean and quiet and seemed to take care of himself. He never knocked things over or scratched the furniture. It was almost like living with a very polite roommate who just happened to be a cat. Jake could not shake the feeling that there was more to Rusty than met the eye. The way he opened doors and watched the news and stared at the sky, the strange scar and missing ear, the 2 smart green eyes that seemed to see everything. Jake told himself he was being silly. Rusty was just a very smart cat who had survived some kind of accident before Jake found him. There was nothing mysterious about it. He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 months after Jake found Rusty, everything changed. It started on a Tuesday morning in January when Jake was getting ready for work. He was drinking his coffee and watching the morning news when the program suddenly stopped. The screen went black for a moment, and a new image appeared. It was not the normal news people. Instead, there was a view of the sky above Denver. Jake could see his own neighborhood from high up, like the camera was floating in the air. "What the hell?" Jake said. He grabbed the remote and tried to change the channel. Every channel showed the same thing. The sky above different cities around the world. Then Jake looked out his window and saw them. Huge dark ships hanging in the air above Denver. They were bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. The ships looked like they were made of black metal twisted into strange shapes. They had no wings or engines that Jake could see, but they stayed perfectly still in the sky. The largest ship was right above downtown Denver. It was so big it cast a shadow over half the city. Jake could see smaller ships around it. There were maybe 20 ships total, just hanging there like they had always been part of the sky. Jake's phone started ringing. It was Amy from next door. "Jake, are you seeing this?" Amy's voice was shaking. "Are you looking outside right now?" "I see them," Jake said. He was still staring out the window. How did they get there so fast? They were not there 10 minutes ago. Turn on the news, Amy said. It's on every channel. Jake looked back at his TV. The image had changed again. Now there was a person on the screen, but it was not a human person. The figure was tall and thin with skin that looked like metal. It had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern on its face. When it spoke, its voice was cold and clear. People of Earth, the figure said, we are the Zeroth Collective. We come from beyond your star system. We have watched your world for many years. Your species has shown violence and destruction. You have damaged your planet and fight among yourselves. This cannot continue. Jake sat down hard on his couch. Rusty jumped up next to him and sat very still. The cat was watching the TV screen with more attention than Jake had ever seen. We offer you one choice, the alien continued. You will surrender. Your governments to us. You will accept our rule. We will bring order to your chaotic world. You have 36 hours to make this choice. If you refuse, we will remove your species from this planet. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning. The screen went black again. Then the normal news came back on, but the news people looked scared and confused. They were trying to explain what had just happened, but they did not seem to understand it any better than Jake did. Jake's phone rang again. This time, it was his boss at the repair shop. Jake, don't come in today, his boss said. Nobody is coming in. Have you seen what's happening outside? Jake looked out the window again. People were coming out of buildings and standing in the streets looking up at the alien ships. Some people were running. Others were just standing and staring. Jake could hear car horns and sirens in the distance. I see them, Jake said. What do you think they want? Did you hear the message? His boss asked. They want us to give up. Just surrender everything to them. After Jake hung up the phone, he noticed something strange. Rusty was not acting scared like Jake would expect a cat to act. Instead, Rusty was sitting up straight and looking out the window with his head tilted to one side. It looked like he was listening to something. Jake could not hear. Amy knocked on Jake's door a few minutes later. She came in without waiting for him to answer. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. This is really happening, isn't it? She said. Those things up there are really alien ships. I think so, Jake said. I mean, what else could they be? They sat together on Jake's couch and watched the news. Every channel was showing the same things. The alien ships were over every major city in the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. The ships all looked the same. Dark and twisted and impossibly big. The news people were trying to stay calm, but Jake could see they were scared. Military jets were flying around the alien ships, but they seemed tiny next to the massive vessels. The jets fired missiles at the ships, but the weapons just bounced off like they hit an invisible wall. Our weapons are not working, Amy said. How are we supposed to fight them if our weapons don't work? Jake did not have an answer. He looked over at Rusty. The cat had moved to the window and was staring up at the alien ship above Denver. Rusty's tail was moving back and forth in a slow, steady rhythm. It was not like a normal cat's tail movement when they were excited or angry. It was more controlled, more purposeful. On TV, a general was giving a press conference. He was trying to sound confident, but Jake could see the worry in his eyes. We are prepared to defend our planet, the general said. We have the best military in the world. We will not surrender to these invaders. But Jake had seen the missiles bounce off the alien ships. He did not think the military could do much against technology like that. The hours passed slowly. Jake and Amy sat together, watching the news and looking out the window. The alien ships never moved. They just hung there in the sky, like a dark reminder that everything had changed. People on the street below were acting strange. Some had packed their cars and were trying to leave the city. Others were going into stores and buying as much food and water as they could carry. A few people were just sitting on the sidewalks crying. Jake tried to call his parents in California, but the phone lines were too busy. Amy tried to call her sister in Chicago, but got the same busy signal. It seemed like everyone in the world was trying to call someone. As the day went on, Jake noticed that Rusty was acting more and more strange. The cat kept moving around the apartment like he was looking for something. He would go to the window, then to Jake's computer, then to the kitchen, then back to the window. His movements were quick and focused, like he had a plan. "Your cat is acting weird," Amy said. "Even weirder than usual." Jake had noticed it too. Rusty was walking differently. Not like a cat exploring or playing, but like a person pacing while they thought about a problem. Several times Jake saw Rusty stop in front of Jake's computer and stare at it for long minutes. That evening, the news got worse. The aliens had started sending down smaller ships to major cities. These ships landed in parks and open areas. Tall figures in dark armor came out and set up some kind of equipment. The news called them monitoring stations, but nobody knew what they were really for. The 36-hour deadline was getting closer. World leaders were meeting to discuss surrender. Some countries wanted to fight. Others thought giving up was the only way to save human lives. Nobody could agree on what to do. Jake made dinner, but neither he nor Amy could eat much. They were both too nervous and scared. Rusty ate his food normally, which seemed strange. Most animals would be upset by all the noise and chaos outside, but Rusty acted calm. As night fell, Jake and Amy went out on the balcony. The alien ship above them had lights on it now. Strange blue and green lights that pulsed in patterns. Jake wondered if the lights meant something. If they were some kind of message or signal. Rusty came out on the balcony too. He sat between Jake and Amy and looked up at the ship. Then he did something that made both humans stop talking. Rusty made a sound. It was not a meow or a purr. It was a low electronic sound, like a computer making a connection. The sound lasted about 10 seconds, then stopped. Jake and Amy looked at each other, then at Rusty. "Did your cat just make a machine sound?" Amy asked. Before Jake could answer, Rusty made the sound again. This time it was different, higher-pitched and longer, like he was trying to communicate with something. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. He looked at Rusty's scar and missing ear. He thought about how smart the cat was, how he could open doors and seemed to understand everything, how he always knew when the strange lights would appear in the sky. "Amy," Jake said quietly, "I don't think Rusty is just a cat." Jake stared at Rusty after the cat made that strange electronic sound. Amy moved closer to Jake on the balcony. They both watched as Rusty sat perfectly still, looking up at the alien ship above them. "What do you mean he's not just a cat?" Amy whispered. Jake thought about everything he had seen over the past 3 months. The way Rusty opened doors. How he seemed to understand human speech perfectly. The strange scar and missing ear. The way he always knew when unusual lights would appear in the sky. "I think he might be connected to this somehow," Jake said. "Look at how calm he is. Every other animal in the city is going crazy, but Rusty acts like this is normal." As if he understood what they were talking about, Rusty turned and looked at Jake. Those bright green eyes seemed to be studying Jake's face. Then Rusty walked over to the balcony door and looked back at them, like he wanted them to follow him inside. Jake and Amy went back into the apartment. Rusty walked straight to Jake's computer desk and sat down in front of the keyboard. He looked up at Jake and made a small sound. "I think he wants to use the computer," Amy said. "That's impossible, right?" Jake sat down at his desk and turned on the computer. Rusty immediately jumped up onto the desk next to the keyboard. The cat looked at the screen as it started up, then looked at Jake again. "Okay, this is really weird," Jake said. He opened a web browser and moved away from the keyboard. "Show me what you want." Rusty stepped carefully onto the keyboard. His paws were too big to hit single keys, but he managed to press several keys at once. Random letters appeared on the screen. Jake thought maybe this was just a coincidence until he saw what Rusty was trying to spell. The letters on the screen said, "Lepmemi." Amy grabbed Jake's arm. "Did your cat just try to type 'help me'?" Rusty looked at the screen, then at Jake. He stepped on the backspace key several times to erase the letters. Then he tried again. This time he was more careful. He pressed keys slowly and deliberately. "Help" appeared on the screen. Jake's heart was beating fast. He looked at Rusty, who was watching him intently. "Help you with what?" Jake asked. Rusty could not answer that question by typing. Instead, he jumped down from the desk and walked to the window. He sat down and stared up at the alien ship. Then he looked back at Jake and Amy. "I think he's trying to tell us something about those ships," Amy said. But how could a cat know anything about alien spaceships? Jake had an idea that seemed crazy, but he had to try it. He opened a text-to-speech program on his computer. It was software that could read text out loud in a computer voice. "Can you use this to talk to us?" Jake asked Rusty. Rusty jumped back onto the desk and looked at the screen. He seemed to understand what the program was for. He began typing very carefully. Each letter took him several tries, but slowly words appeared. "Not cat" appeared on the screen. Jake clicked the speak button, and the computer voice said the words. OutLoud.Amy made a small sound of surprise. Jake felt like the world was spinning around him. Rusty kept typing. "Am soldier from stars." The computer voice spoke the words. Jake and Amy looked at each other, then back at Rusty. "You're an alien." Jake said. Rusty typed yes on the screen. Amy sat down hard on Jake's couch. "This can't be happening," she said. "My neighbor's cat is an alien soldier." Jake had so many questions, he did not know where to start. "Are you from the same place as those ships up there?" he asked. Rusty typed quickly. "No, they are enemy. I am here to stop them." "How?" Jake asked. "You're just one cat. They have huge ships and weapons." Rusty was quiet for a long time. He seemed to be thinking about how to explain something complicated. Finally, he started typing again. "My real name is Zix9. I am commander in Galactic Defense Coalition. We have been fighting Zirith for many years." Jake read the words on the screen out loud so Amy could hear them. She was staring at Rusty with her mouth open. "The Zirith are the aliens in those ships?" Jake asked. "Yes," Rusty typed. "They destroy planets, make all species their slaves. We tried to stop them, but always too late." "So you came here before they did," Amy said, "to warn us." Rusty shook his head. He typed more words. "Came here to hide and watch. My body changed to look like cat. Memories blocked so I would act normal. Backup plan in case Zirith found Earth." Jake was starting to understand. "You were like a sleeper agent. Hidden. Until you were needed." "Yes, but something went wrong. Memory blocks damaged. Started remembering too early. The scar on your side," Jake said. "That happened in a battle with these Zirith." Rusty typed, "Yes. Last battle before came to Earth. Ship crashed. Barely escaped." Amy was looking at Rusty like she was seeing him for the first time. "So when Jake found you behind that dumpster, you were really an alien war hero with amnesia." "Yes, but memories coming back now. Zirith ships triggering restoration protocol." Jake looked out the window at the massive alien ship hanging over Denver. "What's the restoration protocol?" Rusty typed for a long time. "When Zirith arrive, my real memories return. I remember mission. Remember, how to fight them, but also remember friends who died in war. Jake could see sadness in Rusty's green eyes. This alien soldier had been fighting a war across the galaxy. He had seen worlds destroyed and people killed. Then he had been alone on Earth with no memory of who he really was. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "That must have been terrible." Rusty looked at Jake and made a small purring sound. He typed, "You and Amy were kind to me, gave me home. I do not want Zereth to hurt you." Amy wiped tears from her eyes. "We want to help you," she said, "but we're just humans. We don't know how to fight aliens." Rusty sat up straighter. His whole posture changed. Instead of sitting like a house cat, he sat like a soldier at attention. When he typed, his words came faster and more confident. "Zereth ships have weakness. Shield generators create resonance frequency. If disrupted at right time, shields fail." "How do we disrupt them?" Jake asked. "Need electromagnetic pulse from multiple ground sources. Very precise timing. Very dangerous." Jake looked at Amy. "You work at the power company. Do you know about electromagnetic pulses?" Amy nodded slowly. "In theory. If we could coordinate the power grid and some radio transmitters, we might be able to create a localized EMP. But the timing would have to be perfect." Rusty typed, "I can calculate timing, but need signal booster close to ship. Someone must get very high up." "How high?" Jake asked. "Top of tallest building in city center. Need to place device that will focus EMP burst." Amy looked out the window toward downtown Denver. The tallest building was a skyscraper about 40 stories high. It was right under the alien ship. "That's impossible," she said. "How would we even get up there? The whole downtown area is probably evacuated." Rusty jumped down from the desk and walked to a corner of Jake's apartment. He began digging at the carpet with his claws. After a few minutes, he had pulled up a section of carpet. Underneath was a small metal panel built into the floor. Jake and Amy looked at each other in amazement. "How long has that been there?" Jake asked. Rusty pressed his paw against the panel. It opened with a soft click. Inside was a space about the size of a shoebox. It contained several small devices that looked like nothing Jake had ever seen. They were made of a silver metal and covered with tiny lights. Rusty picked up one of the devices in his mouth and brought it to Jake. Up close, Jake could see it was incredibly complex. The surface was covered with patterns too small and detailed for human technology. Rusty went back to the computer and typed Coalition Emergency Kit. Hidden when I first arrived. Contains tools needed for mission. You've been planning this for 3 months, Amy said. No, have been planning this for 3 years. Time I have been on Earth. Jake realized that everything had been planned from the beginning. Rusty getting lost behind the dumpster where Jake would find him. Living in this specific apartment building. Even becoming friends with Amy, who worked at the power company. You chose us, Jake said. This wasn't an accident. Rusty looked at Jake with those intelligent green eyes. For the first time since Jake had known him, Rusty looked completely alien. The way he held his head and moved his body was different. More controlled and purposeful. But when Rusty typed his next message, Jake realized that even though Rusty was an alien soldier, he was still the same cat who had lived with Jake for 3 months. Yes, I chose you, but also came to love you. You are good humans, worth fighting for. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of explosions in the distance. He looked out his window and saw smoke rising from several parts of the city. The alien ships were still hanging in the sky, but now they had weapons pointed down at the ground. Amy was already in Jake's apartment when he came out of his bedroom. She was sitting at his computer with Rusty. They had been working together for hours, planning their attack on the Zereth ships. The 36-hour deadline ends at noon. Today, Amy said. That's only 4 hours from now. Jake looked at the alien devices spread out on his kitchen table. Rusty had spent most of the night showing them how the coalition technology worked. The main device was about the size of a cell phone, but much heavier. It had a screen that showed strange symbols and numbers. This is the signal booster, Amy explained. Rusty says if we can get it to the top of the First National Building downtown, it will focus our electromagnetic pulse directly at the Zereth ship's shield generator. Jake picked up the device. It felt warm in his hands, and the symbols on the screen were moving slowly. How do we get downtown? He asked. The military has blocked off the whole area. Rusty jumped onto the table and typed on a small keyboard that was part of another alien device. Words appeared on its screen. Service tunnels under city, used for power lines and water pipes. Amy knows where they are. Amy nodded. I've been in those tunnels for my job. They connect all the major buildings downtown. We can get to the First National Building without anyone seeing us. What about getting to the top of the building? Jake asked. That's 40 floors up. The elevators won't work if the power is off, Amy said. But the building has emergency stairs. It will take a while, but we can climb it. Jake looked at his two companions. Amy was a strong woman, but she was not a professional climber. Rusty was still just a cat, even if he was an alien cat. This seems impossible, Jake said. Rusty typed more words. Plan has 3 parts. Amy places signal booster on building. Jake controls power, grid from central station. I coordinate timing. From here. Why can't you come with us? Jake asked. Must stay with communication equipment. Need to contact coalition backup ships. They are coming, but still far away. Amy showed Jake a map of the power grid on her laptop. I can access the main control systems from the downtown power station. If we time it right, we can create an EMP burst that covers the whole city. What about all the people? Jake asked. Won't an electromagnetic pulse hurt them? It will knock out power and electronics for a few hours, Amy said. But it won't hurt people directly. The real danger is if our plan doesn't work. Then the Zereth will destroy the city anyway. Jake looked out the window at the alien ship above. Them. It was huge and dark and terrifying. He could not believe they were planning to attack it with just 3 people and some alien technology. There's something else, Amy said. Rusty told me about the coalition backup ships. They're coming to help, but they won't get here for another 6 hours. If we don't stop the Zereth now, there won't be a city left for them to save. Jake made his decision. Okay, let's do this. They spent the next hour preparing. Amy packed the signal booster and some tools in a backpack. Jake loaded software onto his phone that would let him control the power grid remotely. Rusty showed them how to use small communication devices that would let them talk to each other during the mission. These look like earbuds, Jake said as he put the alien communicator in his ear. Coalition technology designed to blend in, Rusty typed. Will work over long distance even if human electronics fail. At 10 in the morning, they left Jake's apartment. Amy led them through the basement of their building to a maintenance door that opened into the city's tunnel system. The tunnels were dark and smelled like oil and metal. Stay close, Amy said as she turned on a flashlight. It's easy to get lost down here. They walked through the tunnels for almost an hour. Jake could hear explosions and gunfire above them. The Zereth were starting their attack early. Maybe they were tired of waiting for humanity to surrender. The tunnel ended at a ladder that led up to the basement of the First National Building. Amy climbed up first and opened a heavy metal door. The basement was dark and empty. Emergency. Lighting provided just enough light to see. The stairs are this way, Amy said. She led them to a door marked Emergency Exit Only. The stairwell was narrow and went up as far as Jake could see. 40 floors of concrete stairs stretched above them. Amy started climbing first. Jake followed behind her. "This is going to take forever," Jake said after they had climbed 10 floors. "We have time," Amy replied. But Jake could hear that she was already breathing hard. They climbed in silence for the next hour. Jake's legs were burning, and his lungs felt like they were on fire. Amy was moving slower too, but she kept going. Every few floors they stopped to rest and drink water. At floor 30, Jake heard Amy's voice through the alien communicator in his ear. "Rusty, can you hear us?" "Yes," came Rusty's voice. The sound quality was perfect, even though they were far underground. "Zereth ships beginning final attack sequence. You have 20 minutes. "We're almost there," Amy said. She was breathing heavily, but still climbing. They reached the top floor at 11:40 in the morning. Amy led Jake to a door marked Roof Access. The door was locked, but Amy had brought tools to break it open. The roof of the building was windy and cold. Above them, the massive Zereth ship blocked out most of the sky. Jake could see weapons charging up on the bottom of the ship. Blue energy was building up in large cannons pointed down at the city. "There," Amy said, pointing to the highest part of the roof. "That's where we need to put the signal booster." They climbed up a metal ladder to the very top of the building. Amy pulled the alien device out of her backpack and set it down on the roof. The device immediately started glowing and making soft beeping sounds. "It's working," Amy said. "Jake, you need to get to the power station now." Jake looked down at the city below. The power station was 6 blocks away. He would have to climb down 40 floors and run through streets full of debris and smoke. "I can do this," Jake said. He started back toward the stairs. "Wait," Amy called. After him. "Jake, be careful. I couldn't do this without you." Jake smiled at her. "See you when this is over." Jake ran down the stairs as fast as he could. His legs were already tired from the climb up, but he forced himself to keep moving. Through the alien communicator, he could hear Rusty giving updates. "Zereth weapons at 50% charge. 15 minutes until they fire." Jake reached the ground floor and ran out into the street. The city looked like a war zone. Cars were abandoned everywhere. Windows were broken. Smoke was rising from dozens of fires. Jake ran toward the power station, dodging pieces of debris that were falling from buildings. Twice he had to hide behind cars when Zereth aircraft flew overhead. 10 minutes, came Rusty's voice in his ear. Jake could see the power station ahead of him. It was a large concrete building surrounded by electrical equipment. The front door was locked, but Jake found a broken window he could climb through. Inside the power station, Jake found the main control room. Amy had shown him pictures of what to look for. Banks of computers and monitors filled the room. Most of the screens were dark, but some were still working. Jake sat down at the main control console and connected his phone to the system. Amy's software loaded automatically. On his phone screen, he could see a map of the entire Denver power grid. "I'm in," Jake said through the communicator. "Good," came Rusty's voice. "Zereth weapons at 80% charge. 5 minutes." Jake's hands were shaking as he worked with the controls. He had to redirect power from every source in the city to create the electromagnetic pulse. If he made a mistake, the whole plan would fail. "Amy, are you ready?" Jake asked. "Signal booster is active," Amy replied. "Just waiting for your EMP burst." Jake looked at his phone screen. All the power grid controls were green. Every power plant and substation in Denver was ready to send their energy into one massive pulse. "Zereth weapons at 95%, Rusty announced. "They will fire in 60 seconds. Jake put his finger over the button that would start the electromagnetic pulse. His heart was beating so fast, he thought it might explode. 30 seconds. Rusty said, Jake could see the Zeroth ship through the power station windows. The blue energy in its weapons was getting brighter. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now. Jake pressed the button. And every light in Denver went out at the same time. The electromagnetic pulse shot out from power stations across the city like invisible lightning. Jake could not see the pulse, but he could feel it in the air around him. His hair stood up and his skin tingled. Through the power station windows, Jake watched the massive Zeroth ship above the city. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship started to flicker like a television with bad reception. The dark, metal hull became transparent in places. Jake could see through parts of the ship to the sky beyond. "It's working," Amy's voice came through the communicator. "The ship's shields are failing." The Zeroth ship made a sound like metal tearing apart. Blue sparks ran along its hull. The weapons that had been charging up suddenly went dark. Jake could see smaller ships around the main vessel, spinning out of control. "Coalition forces attack now," Rusty's voice was excited. "All Zeroth ships losing shields." Jake looked up at the sky and saw something amazing. Missiles were hitting the alien ships. Human fighter jets that had been useless before were now damaging the Zeroth vessels. The electromagnetic pulse had made the alien ships vulnerable, but Jake's excitement was short-lived. Through his communicator, he heard Amy scream. "Jake, the building is shaking," Amy said. "The Zeroth ship is falling." Jake looked up and saw that Amy was right. The massive ship was losing altitude. It was falling slowly, but it was definitely falling. If it crashed into downtown Denver, it would destroy everything for miles around. "Amy, get out of there," Jake shouted into his communicator. "I can't," Amy replied. "The signal booster is still working. If I turn it off, the shields might come back up." Jake ran out of the power station. In the distance, he could see the First National Building. The Zeroth ship was maybe 1,000 feet above it and getting lower. Amy was trapped on the roof with nowhere to go. Jake started running toward downtown. He had to help Amy somehow, but he did not know what he could do. The streets were full of debris, and it was hard to run in the darkness. As Jake ran, he heard Rusty's voice in his communicator. "Coalition backup ships arriving now." Jake looked up at the sky and saw new ships appearing. These ships were white and silver instead of dark metal. They moved fast and smooth like dolphins swimming through water. The Coalition ships started, firing at the falling Zeroth vessel. The Coalition weapons hit the Zeroth ship and pieces of it broke off. But the main part of the ship was still falling toward the building where Amy was trapped. Jake was still 6 blocks away from the First National Building when he heard a new voice in his communicator. The voice sounded human, but spoke with perfect grammar like a computer. "This is Coalition Fleet Commander Chun. We have visual on human operative on building roof. Beginning emergency extraction." Jake stopped running and looked up. One of the small Coalition ships was flying toward the First National Building. The ship was moving incredibly fast, but it slowed down as it got close to the roof. Through his communicator, Jake heard Amy's voice. "There's a ship coming toward me. It's opening some kind of door. Get in," Jake shouted. "That's the Coalition backup Rusty told us about." Jake watched from the street as the small silver ship hovered next to the building. A beam of light shot down from the ship, and Amy disappeared. The ship flew away from the building, just as the massive Zeroth vessel crashed into it. The impact was tremendous. The building collapsed and debris flew everywhere. The sound was louder than anything Jake had ever heard. He was knocked down by the shockwave, even though he was blocks away. When Jake got back to his feet, he saw that the Zeroth ship had been destroyed in the crash. Pieces of alien metal were scattered across downtown Denver. The other Zeroth ships in the sky were retreating. Coalition ships were chasing them away from Earth. Jake's communicator crackled with static and cleared. "Jake, this is Amy. I'm okay. The Coalition ship picked me up just in time." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Where are you now?" he asked. "I'm on one of their ships," Amy said. "It's incredible up here. I can see the whole planet. Jake, we did it. The Zereth are running away." Jake walked back toward his apartment building through the dark streets. Emergency vehicles were starting to appear with their lights flashing. People were coming out of buildings and looking up at the sky where the Coalition ships were patrolling. When Jake got home, he found Rusty sitting by the window. But the cat looked different now. He was sitting up straight and alert like a soldier. When he saw Jake, he jumped down and walked to the computer. Rusty typed a message on the screen. "Mission successful. Zereth fleet retreating from Earth system. Coalition forces taking defensive positions around planet." "What happens now?" Jake asked. "Earth will be invited to join Galactic Defense Coalition. Humans showed great courage today. Proved you are ready for larger universe." Jake sat down on his couch. He was exhausted and overwhelmed by everything that had happened. A few hours ago, he had been a normal person with a normal life. Now he had helped save the world and learned that his pet cat was an alien war hero. "What about you?" Jake asked Rusty. "Do you go back to being a soldier now?" Rusty was quiet for a long time. He seemed to be thinking about something important. Finally, he typed his answer. "Coalition offered to restore my original body. Return to military service, but I have choice." "What choice?" Jake asked. "Can stay on Earth, keep cat body, live with humans I care about, help Earth prepare for Coalition membership." Jake looked at Rusty's green eyes. They still looked intelligent and alien, but they also looked friendly. This was still the same cat who had lived with him for 3 months. The same cat who purred when Jake scratched behind his ears. "Do you want to stay?" Jake asked. Rusty walked over to Jake and jumped up on the couch next to him. He rubbed against Jake's arm and started purring. Then he went back to the computer and typed one word. "Yes." An hour later, Amy came back to the apartment. She had been returned to Earth by the Coalition ship. She looked tired but excited. "You should see their technology," Amy said. "It's like nothing we've ever imagined. They want to share it with us. They're going to help us clean up the damage from the invasion." Jake told Amy about Rusty's choice to stay on Earth. Amy looked at the cat who was now sleeping peacefully on Jake's couch. "So we're roommates with an alien super soldier," Amy said. "That's going to take some getting used to." Over the next few days, the world slowly returned to normal. The Coalition ships remained in orbit around Earth, but they did not interfere with human activities. Coalition representatives met with world leaders to discuss Earth's future. Membership in their organization docked. The news media tried to find out who had been responsible for disabling the alien shields. The government knew that an electromagnetic pulse had been used, but they could not figure out who had coordinated it. Jake and Amy decided to keep their role in the victory secret. Jake went back to work at the computer repair shop. Amy returned to her job at the power company. Rusty went back to being a house cat most of the time. But sometimes Jake would catch him sitting by the window looking up at the Coalition ships in the sky. One evening, Jake was watching the news when a report came on about strange radio signals being detected from deep space. The signals seemed to be some kind of message, but no one could decode them. Rusty jumped up on Jake's desk and typed a message on the computer. "Those are Zereth distress calls. They are calling for reinforcements." "Are they coming back?" Jake asked. "Not soon, but eventually. Zereth do not give up easily. Earth must be ready." Jake looked at his cat, who was also an alien military commander. "Will you help us get ready?" Rusty purred and rubbed against Jake's hand. Then he typed his final message of the day. Always, Earth is my home now. Will protect IT with my life. Jake scratched Rusty behind the ears, and the cat purred louder. Outside the window, the coalition ships moved slowly across the night sky like silver stars. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. And Jake was no longer just a normal person with a normal cat. He was the human companion of Commander Zix-9 of the Galactic Defense Coalition. And he could not imagine his life any other way.